Maybe more. It might be more than 300 at this point. We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa.
You're saying it could be more than 300
sure,
visas?
I hope. At some point, I hope we run out because we've gotten rid of all of them. But we're looking every day for these lunatics.
Let's bring in Kenneth Marcus, the founder and chairman of the Brandeis Center. Kenneth, what do you think about the administration's efforts so far to disrupt these pro-Palestinian protests on campuses?
Good to be with you, John. I'm glad that this administration is taking the strongest actions that we have ever seen in response to campus anti-Semitism. And the question is whether it will be strong enough. The demands that the Trump task force made of Columbia were very clear and very strong. I'll be watching very closely to see whether Columbia is really doing as required. Their initial statement had some good pieces to it, clear that they are not entirely capitulating. To the extent that we're seeing resistance, not just from students and from faculty, but some of the administrators, I think that the administration is going to have to take a very close look at whether any of that $400 million should be going back.
We heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio that about 300 visas have been revoked by his office because of the activities of some of these student protesters. But if you look at the numbers, and we can put them on screen, student visa holders in the United States, there are 1.5 million of them. Now, if you're taking away 300 visas, it seems like a drop in the bucket unless you think that the pro-Palestinian sort of violent protest contingent there is pretty small.
I wish it were pretty small. To be sure, there are some visa holders who are entirely law-abiding, but to the extent that we have visa holders who are supporting terrorist organization Hamas, there should be no question that they do not belong in the United States. We have to remember that these groups are not just calling for the genocide of the Jews. In the case of Columbia University, last summer they made very clear that their goal was, and I quote, the total eradication of Western civilization. If the State Department certifies that having these foreigners in this country calling for the destruction of our civilization, our values, our laws, if they certify that that's necessary for U.S. foreign policy, the question in the court shouldn't be whether the certification is reasonable. The question should be why has it taken them so long?
There are some on Capitol Hill who don't see it as a problem to remove some of these pro-Palestinian demonstrators from the country. James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma, is one of them. Listen.
Is a requirement that if you're a student or under a legal visa here in the United States and you're supporting a terror organization, you can be removed from the United States. So this is not a suppression of free speech. This is saying Americans have the right to free speech. But if you're a foreigner coming into our country and you're coming to undermine our country, whether it's in support of terrorism or not, right, that should be something we do not allow.
Take on the flip side of his argument, though, because you've heard a lot of people say, oh, these protesters are exercising their free speech rights, and that ought to be okay and allowed in America. What do you say?
People certainly should have free speech in America. Let's make a distinction between people who are pro-Palestinian and those who are pro-Hamas. Even in Gaza, we've seen protests against Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. There's nothing wrong with having empathy for people anywhere in the world, whether it's in Palestine or anywhere else. The issue is that we have on college campuses the so-called Hamasniks, the people who are calling for resistance, who are celebrating the atrocities of October 7, and who are not just doing it with speech, but who are taking over buildings. They are erecting unlawful encampments. They are obstructing Jewish students trying to get to class. They are, in some cases, involved in assault. This is very different from freedom of speech, and it is not in any way protected under our Constitution.
Kenneth Marcus from the Brandeis Center. Kenneth, thanks.
Great to be with you.
You too.